Check 1, 2.
Welcome, everyone, to the
Hello.
July 19th, 2022 council meeting. As a reminder, this meeting will be live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. Prior to the open session, there was a brief closed session. It was moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Borneman. That pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 is amended, Council of the Corporation, the Town of Parry Sound, moved to a special meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, interest in purchasing town property. That meeting was held. Okay, and at this time, I would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. And also the Civic Scholarship. I would like to remind college and university students that the town is currently accepting applications for the 2022 Civic Scholarship Award. The $500 scholarship is awarded annually to one university or college student who is a permanent resident of the Town of Parry Sound and is entering or within their second year of classes with at least a 60% course load in September of this year. Fully eligible criteria and an application form can be found on the town's website. Just search scholarship, and deadline for the receipt of applications is July 25th. Okay. Are there any additions or prioritization of the agenda? No? Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Councillor McCann, Councillor Backman. That the council agenda for July 19th, 2022 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried then. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? No? Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes? Councillor Keith, Councillor Borneman, that the minutes from the regular council meeting held July 5th, 2022 be approved as circulated. Is there any discussion, comments of the minutes? No? All in favor then? That's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor McCain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Mr. Kearns. Someone was asking me this week about a policy, if any, that the town may have in terms of, I guess, preserving milkweed along the fitness trail for the sake of preserving the monarch butterflies. And I guess some townships have a program whereby they avoid cutting it down until the end of some particular season or monarch season or whatnot. Are we doing anything along those lines?
Through your worship. So not officially. However, we differ a little bit from some of the rural municipalities around here in that we don't undertake the same roadside cutting, necessarily being more urban. Now, having said that, that's certainly something we're aware of, and we will try and preserve as long as we can. Along the fitness trail, I'm not sure that we have a great need for cutting entirely. The roadside cutting is typically done to ensure sight lines and that sort of thing, that the sides of the road are clear in case there's animals or those sorts of things in rural areas coming out of the coming out of the bush. So,
yeah. And in this case, they were asking about the fitness trail specifically. So they weren't. This wasn't about roadside. Just basically, this was confined to the fitness trail.
So not officially, as I said, typically those are roadside cutting, but we will certainly make sure all staff ensure that when we're weed eating or whippersnipping around those areas that we leave the milkweed, which is a lot easier when you're doing it by hand as well versus machine cutting. So
sure. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Borneman.
Just to jump in the past couple of years, the biosphere has actually helped us out with that. And created butterfly gardens in a couple of locations along the trail on the east side of the river at least.
Mhm. Any other questions of stuff? Nope. Okay, all right. Correspondence, Ms. Horton.
Thank you. It's just noted that the Parry Sound Area Founder Circle is currently accepting applications for the 2022 awards. First and second place awards are $10,000 and $5,000 respectively. The application deadline is August 31st. Any applications received to date have been forwarded to file pending the deadline.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have any deputations. So we'll go to reports and we'll start on this side of the room tonight with Councillor Keith.
Thank you. Well, my report will be very short. I had no meetings to attend. However, I made my regular attendance at attending the cruise ships, including the also the HMS Oriole that I'm sure that our mayor will report on further, but I thought it was really great not only to have a tour, but the captain also presented me with a little crest of the ship. I thought that was really nice. And the other thing would be, I was down there again this week. I really do think it's very important that when people come off the ships, that we do our very best to welcome them, because it's really important for people to see that you really appreciate them coming to your community. And also, to me, the selling idea is this time you came on the cruise ship, but the next time, maybe you come back on your own and you stay a little longer. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Keith. And yes, our Economic Development Officer, Vlad, will be giving an update on the cruise ships a little bit later. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. I had one meeting to attend, which was today, and with the time change, I was unable to attend. And that was for the industrial park meeting, and Councillors Burden and Borman, I assume, will report on that. With regards to events in the community, it's been a very busy couple of weeks, starting with the Big Film Festival. Last week, DBA Summer in the Sound, Art in the Park Festival, of the Sound box office opening. And so I wasn't able to attend the Big Sound Film Festival, but I've received a lot of feedback on that festival, and as its second annual festival was this year, and I am definitely looking forward to participating next year's. It seems like it was a wonderful economic draw for the community. Along with, of course, the other events that I did attend. This weekend's Art in the Park was exceptional, a little bit less vendors, I believe, than previous years, but the park was full, as well as the Tuesday market. Today's Tuesday market, I went over to grab some popcorn for my children, and it was just quite impressive to see the amount of traffic that is touring through the downtown to attend these markets. So I just really appreciate the effort that the volunteers put forth to create these things to do for people in our community. I'd just like to note that this Friday, the MV Chippewa has a food drive free cruise from 1 to 3 p.m. It's a cruise for cans. They're collecting food for Harvest Share with a free ride. All you need to do is bring 2 cans of goods or whatever you can to support as a donation. And I do look forward to the Poutine Fest that is happening on the 21st to 24th in the town of Parry Sound at the Town Dock. And that is my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Good evening, all. I've had no committee meetings this summer. and there is none scheduled for August. So see you all in September. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and public. Just one meeting for me to report on, and with Councillor Borneman, we attended a special meeting of the Belvedere Heights Board of Management Monday morning to discuss property matters, and that is my report. Very short one.
Thanks, Councillor Borneman.
Try this again. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. First, I join in everyone else in congratulating the volunteers and putting on the various events that are occurring around the community. For a place where there's nothing to do, there's a lot going on. As I think Councillor Bachman indicated, the festival started today. It runs through the 4th of July, or 4th of August. I hope folks get out and continue to support that. You know, the Oriole was, they've been on a few Navy ships. I have a son-in-law who served in the Navy, and that one's rather different than any of the others that I've seen. Quite an interesting craft. I congratulate the downtown and Erigna Park people for really a complimentary event over the weekend, and I hope it's the first of many where we see different organizations working together. I think the summit was greater than the parts involved. Both organizations benefited. I see Mr. Cairns and Mr. Bonanza here tonight. I want to mention the line painting that I asked about the last time around has made great progress. And I want to thank you and whoever else was involved in making that happen. Councillor McCann mentioned the meeting at Belvedere Heights Monday, and this afternoon, Councillor Burden and I did attend at the Parry Sound Industrial Park. Also a special meeting related to property matters that will come forward eventually, I expect. And that's my report for this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Evening, everyone. On July the 13th, I attended the regular meeting of the Downtown Business Association. Final preparations for the summer festival were well underway, and since then, the festival has happened last Saturday on the 16th of July. It went, as far as I can find out, extremely well. The town was busy. I was down there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and things were starting to happen then, and it went on until I was back down again at 9 o'clock in the evening, listening to some music, and good crowd, and everybody seemed really happy, and it was really good to see. Special thanks to the Downtown Business Association Events Committee, which is made up of April Denman, Amy Black, and Karen Hobbs, and they put endless hours of work into this event, and I congratulate them. And a special thanks to April's husband, Jeff. Shortly after I got down there at 7 o'clock in the morning, he was there putting up barriers and getting ready to set up the beer tent, and he was apparently coming back to put up the stage. And when I was back down there in the evening, he was slinging beer at the bar, and I don't know how many hours he put in, but it was a lot, and he deserves a special thank you. July 14th, regular monthly meeting of the District Social Services Administration Board. All is going well there. Busy. No issues at this stage. And as Councillor Borneman mentioned, we attended a special meeting today of the Industrial Park Board. And yes, as Councillor Borneman said, more information will come out in the near future, but we'll leave it at that for now. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Council staff and public, July 9th, as Councillor Keith mentioned, she and I met the HMCS Oriole at the town dock. This 101-year-old ship was really a beauty to see. The old equipment and of course new equipment integrated into it. And the captain, who was over 6 feet tall, has kept the number of times that he's whacked his head or whatever on the beam going down below. So we had a nice tour. I want to thank Vlad and Navi for coordinating the greeting and gift basket for them as well, which they appreciated, of local goods. We were really lucky to have them here, and I want to thank I guess Mary Ann King Wilson and some of the others that coordinated having the ship come in. They had around 600 visitors over the weekend tour the boat, which is absolutely fantastic. So great to have them at the dock, and great that people actually came out and said hello and that sort of thing. And you know, certainly thank you to our staff for making sure that we were there to welcome them. July 14th was the Parry Sound District Social Services Board, as Councillor Burden mentioned. July 15th, 16th, and 17th, Art in the Park event, Market Square Park. It was really great to see the artisans out with good crowds. The vendors that I talked to were very happy with the turnout and sales. Thank you to the Arts and Crafts Society for organizing the event, and also our town staff for what they support in the event as well. It all comes together with a lot of help. And July 16th was downtown for the DPA event, and it was good crowd, like a really, really solid crowd. Lots to see, lots to do. The children really loved the fire truck and having the water pour down or whatever there in the parking lot. I mean, the kids were just having an absolutely great time. It was, they were having a lot of fun. So good crowds. And thank you to the downtown businesses for their efforts in the DBA. And overall, Saturday was just a busy day around town, which was good. So good, solid numbers of people out. July 17th in the evening was the opening night for the Festival of the Sound. The Elmer Eisler Singers performed for the opening night, and it was great to hear them again in person. For the next 2 weeks, the Festival of the Sound will be putting on shows, and we are really lucky to have a world-class festival held at a world-class facility at the Charles W. Stockey Center. We are just so lucky to have that venue and that quality of music coming out of our community. So I think it's, as Councillor Borneman said, sometimes there's nothing to do, but there's a heck of a lot going on. It's very true. So it's, you know, it's going to be, I think, a busy summer, and people get out and enjoy themselves. I know with the heat right now, people are finally feeling like it is summer, so they're excited that way. So, and just everybody be safe. All right, that's my report. So I think next up is Vlad's report on the cruise ship report. for the public's sake, working through some of this new technology is a bit of a trick at times.
Okay, so sorry for this. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff and general public. In my presentation today, I will very briefly talk about the overall state of cruise ship industry on Great Lakes for this year, and then go in more detail about the town's passenger greeting program that is in place for arriving cruise ships. I will also provide feedback from Great Lakes Cruise Association regarding this program, and I will conclude with a few words about the very recent visit, as you have already heard about the very recent visit of a very special ship, Oriole, to Parry Sound. So couple words about the cruise ship industry this year. As you know, last season was completely lost due to COVID, but we were fortunate in that in late February of this year, Transport Canada allowed international cruise ship operators to re-enter Canadian territorial waters. So the operators had plenty of time, well, enough time to prepare for a full cruise ship season this year. And we already observed a very strong recovery of the industry post-COVID with more visits to port, but I think more importantly, new cruise ship lines entering Great Lakes, which speaks very well for future growth of the industry. And overall for Parry Sound, this cruise ship season will run from May 23rd through October 18th. We will have 20 ship visits in total by 3 operators. Pearl Seas obviously is very well known to all of you. It's an American cruise ship line that has been coming to town for, I would say, 8 years at least. But Viking Cruises from Norway is brand new for Great Lakes, of course. It's a major international player in cruise ship industry, and they come strong with 7 visits to town already in their first year with brand new ship, Viking Octantis, completely new, built in December of last year. And later this season, between mid-September, mid-October, we will have 3 visits of Ponant cruises from Marseille, France. They're relatively new to Great Lakes. They started in 2019 with 2 visits to Parry Sound, but then of course COVID happened, and in a way they're re-entering Great Lakes as a destination for their passengers. So in terms of ship visits, we will experience 40% growth over 2019, which was the last cruise ship season pre-COVID, obviously, which is a very good sign. And I can tell you right now that 2023 is shaping even better. We will have more visits next year, at least 30, which speaks very well for the strategic growth of the industry over Great Lakes. And so I will talk about our greeting programs in more detail on this slide. And first and foremost is the welcome tent or information tent. We set it up for each cruise ship visit. It sits on the dock. Inside there are 2 tables, and they're completely packed with all sorts of information about town, places of interest, museums, maps. We also have a few booklets from local marketing leaflets, rather, from local vendors. And there is a volunteer in the tent at all times. During Corrigan, she is extremely knowledgeable about whatever is happening in the town, its history, what's open, what's not, what's to visit, how to get there. So she is excellent in providing extremely well-rounded information for passengers, that come from ships. Also, our newly hired administrative assistant for economic development, Navi, is present at the welcome tent. She helps Drin in answering passenger questions, but her role is a bit more higher level. She also liaises with the cruise ship tourism directors and ensures that all our programs are running well, all services are provided on time and as requested. The town provides free shuttle bus service to passengers, and the bus operates from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and it takes passengers all the way up through, obviously, downtown, and then goes back up the hill to Museum on Tower Hill and returns and ends at Bobby Orr Hall of Fame. And there will be a map with the route on my next slide to better visualize the actual route of the bus. Next is not new. We have done this before, but this year it's back. We have booked Terry Little and his band, and they play on the dock during each Pearl Mist visit for about an hour in late afternoon when passengers are returning from a full day of sightseeing and excursions. And it's especially important for specifically Pearl Mist passengers because 98 to 99% of passengers from that cruise line are actually American citizens. So when they hear country music, it adds to the atmosphere. It's a very nice touch, and they do appreciate it. Next is something new for this year. This year we issued brand new uniforms to our security staff, and there will be a photo on my next slide, and I'll talk about it a little bit more then. Finally, for the French operator Ponant Cruises later this season, mid-September through mid-October, we will also provide a French speaking interpreter at the dock. That person will be based at the tent to greet passengers in their own language. And as I mentioned on this slide, you just have a few photos to help you better visualize how the program operates. The most important, of course, is the top left, where you can see a picture where you can see the welcome or information tent. It is located just behind the barricades, so the general public cannot access that zone, which of course allows the passengers to freely enter the tent and explore whatever literature is located there, and also ask questions to Drin and Navi. On the right, there is a photo, obviously, of the shuttle bus, but please check out that blue and white sign by the bus. It's new for this year. In the past years, there was no sign to mark the actual stop for the bus, and that created a bit of confusion for some of the passengers, especially promised passengers who tend to be elderly, 70 to 85 age bracket. So now with that sign, they immediately recognize see where the stop is and wait for the bus, which runs roughly every 30 minutes between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., as I said. And bottom row on the left, that person is Bob Corrigan, our Chief Security Officer on the dock, in his new uniform. I don't know, maybe you don't see it, but I can assure you there is a very distinct town logo above his left pocket, and also security is written in bold letters in the back of the shirt. So now our security personnel is clearly and immediately identifiable by everybody, by passengers, by crew, by general public. So whenever there is an emergency or just a question that they need to address to security, and we usually have at least 3 security personnel at all times on the dock, they can quickly come up to them and ask whatever they need to find out from security. And the last photo, bottom right, obviously that's the band providing entertainment to Pearl Mist passengers. And on this slide, it's the map of the shuttle bus route. Starts from the dock number 1 and then goes all the way through James Street, through downtown, and then up to the hill and returns, and the route ends at the Stocky Center, Bobby Orr Hall of Fame. Again, this is a very important service for cruise ship passengers, and actually not only for Pearl Mist, but in May we did it as a trial with Viking Atlantis with their first visit, but the ship operator liked that service so much that we now offer free shuttle bus service for Viking passengers as well, in addition to Pearl Mist. So in May, when we prepared our passenger greeting program, I emailed it for review to Stephen Burnett, Executive Director of Great Lakes Cruise Association, and the town is a member of this organization. Stephen is an extremely knowledgeable expert as far as cruise ship industry globally, and obviously he is extremely well aware of what's happening as far as greeting programs on all Canadian ports on Great Lakes. So his feedback was, he gave us very high marks for our program, and especially positively remarked on these 3 items which are on the slide, obviously information tent, a free shuttle bus, and live music on the dock. Yes, after that, I also emailed that our program to 6 Canadian ports directly to their tourism directors and or economic development managers, and all of them replied that our program is high class. In fact, a couple of those ports asked to quote unquote borrow some of our components of to use in their own program. But personally, I like the feedback from the city of Thunder Bay. They do have a quite well-developed program, and what they have that we do not, they offer indigenous indigenous artists and musicians performing on the dock, and I do think it's very important, and I think we can easily replicate this for next season and going forward, which will be especially important for visitors from Europe, for Ponant cruise passengers from France, but more importantly, next year we will also enjoy visits of Hapag-Lloyd, which is one of the largest tour operators based in Germany. So they will bring German tourists, and I know that Germans do appreciate North American indigenous culture very much. So I think for next year, we should include that in our program as well. And finally, my last two slides relate to the visit of Oriole that was already mentioned today a couple of times. This unique ship was at port for 2 days, and for the first day on July 9th, our mayor and council Keith formally welcomed the captain and crew, and economic development department, specifically Navi. She prepared a very nicely done and nicely arranged gift basket, which was given to the captain, who obviously appreciated it very much. And there will be a photo of the basket on the next slide. It contained only locally sourced and locally made items, which was very a nice gesture, I would say. The visit went smoothly without any problems, although for the first day, 2 ships, Pearl Mist and Oriole, shared the same dock, which was quite a challenge for our security personnel, but Bob and his team, they did a great job and no problem there. And as the mayor mentioned, incredible numbers, and that's official. That's information coming from the Oriole communications officer. It's not us, it's them. They claim that in 2 days, the ship was visited by almost 600 people, which is just amazing. So that was great and excellent experience. And this is just a couple of photos from the ship, and they are self-explanatory, but I think the most, not the most important, but look at the bottom with the gift basket. I think you recognize local brews, local wine, Crofter's jam, there is some honey there, and everything in the basket is locally made, which was obviously very nice touch. So yeah, that completes my presentation. I'm open for questions, of course. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Council Borneman.
Thank you, Vlad. That's a great update, and good to know that we're measuring up. As more ships are visiting Parry Sound, are there greater security requirements that we'll have to approach as more boats are coming into the community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Every year we are audited by Transport Canada, and their focus is specifically on security. I don't think this will present too much of a challenge to our security team, because we try to, when we communicate with the cruise ship operators, we try to arrange their schedule in such a way that there is only one ship at our dock per day. So that's why there will be extra load to security team, because more days they will be busy. But as far as actual work during the visit, it's basically just one ship per day. Well, bigger ships are coming, you're right, but it's still manageable so far. So
No physical barriers, fencing, anything like that has been suggested?
As you probably, if you remember the photo with the information tent, we do erect every time we set up barriers to separate the secured part of the dock from the general access area. So that's what they do, and security personnel then of course are physically present there and to not allow general public inside the secure area. So that's their job, basically.
When, I'll go to Councilor McCann in just a second, but when we have, I'm gonna say non-Canadian visitors, do we have to provide any duty services, or is that taken care of with the cruise ship company? With purchased goods, like?
Yeah, well, it's a fairly complex setup. It is organized on the ships because they are kind of neutral waters, so to speak, neutral territory rather. Yeah. No,
Okay.
we do not offer this kind
Alright.
of
That's
service.
good
no.
to know. Thank you. Councilor McCann.
Thank you, Vlad. Excellent report, very encouraging. I was just wondering a couple of things with the ship anchored in the sound. The logistics of moving people back and forth, did that present problems at all, or did that work very smoothly? And in talking about security, was there what would the ship do in terms of other public boaters on the road in the bay approaching the ship? Were there any concerns that way as far as security goes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, first question, no problems at all as far as bringing passengers on smaller boats to the dock. They do it all the time. Viking Tent is too big a ship for many small ports on Great Lakes, so they operate this quite smoothly, and there is no problem for passengers to come on the dock from that smaller boats. So no problem as far as your first question. Question number two, again, this is something that the ship crew takes care of. We're not really involved with anything which happens beyond our docks, so I cannot really comment. I know that there have been no problems so far. We can ask the crew. Obviously we do communicate with tourism directors and some crew members as well prior to visit and post each visit, and they will have Viking Tentis will be here total 7 visits, and that was their 3rd visit on Monday, so they should come to Parry Sound 4 more times this year. So yeah, we can keep this in mind, but so far no problems.
I think I was just curious more or less than anything else, but thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Keith.
Yes, just a comment, Vlad, and that had to do with security. 2 comments, and that would be that since the people who are performing that service of security, I've talked to them that not only are they very pleased with their uniform, but the quality of the material is a breathing material. And I was there again on last week in a couple of the hot days, and they really were impressed on the fact that that material breathing made it really comfortable for them. And the other thing about security that I think one may not think about right away is that every person that tries to get back on the boat, because there is a secure area, the security people are asking them for their pass even before they go to the boat, when they would be required to take their pass again. So I think that security people are monitoring and trying to do their best on our part to make sure that people are not going through the barricades and causing any sort of grief for those for when they get closer to the ship. So I think that was really great. The other thing that I observed is that when local people or visitors come to our community and they see that cruise ship there, just to start with, they're really impressed, and they're always often asking questions to Dreen about other things that are going on in Parry Sound. So it's almost like another information service that suddenly is on the dock. So it really is a great benefit in that area. So I think we should be commending the fine work that is being done by security, who are also acting almost as our own tourist guide, so to speak. And thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for this question, Council. It is the work that our security personnel is doing is really important, actually critical when you host international ships. And as I mentioned, every year we're audited by Transport Canada, so it's very important that our security is up to speed, so to say. So when we decided to issue new uniforms, we actually gave the lead to Bob Corrigan, to senior security officer. We asked him to select the material, to select the color of the uniform, and everything else. So that's why the second part, to address the second part of your question, you are absolutely right. And I think I also mentioned that in my presentation. Dreen, and we have to remember, she is a volunteer. She is not being paid at all. She does extremely valuable service to the town. Very knowledgeable, very friendly, extremely friendly disposition. So when all these international passengers are coming, and they are like hundreds, the Pearl Mist carries close to 200 passengers. And Viking Tent is close to 400 passengers. So almost all of them pass through the tent, the information tent. Almost all of them ask some kind of question to her, but she maintains that very friendly disposition and very knowledgeable. All her answers are to the point, and you're absolutely right. She basically acts as a second tourism information booth for the town. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, no other questions. Thank you for the presentation. Very well done. And please thank our volunteers and the staff down there. Well done. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will definitely convey your
Okay.
best
thank you
wishes
to
to
Thank you to you as well.
Well, part of my joke, but thanks.
All right, so moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Burden, that the Economic Development Officer's cruise ship report for 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that council accepts the bid from Fowler Construction Company Limited for the 2022 roads rehabilitation and resurfacing project that includes Bow Street, Church Street, Georgina Street, Joseph Street, McFarland Street, and Park Lane in the amount of $2,066,963.49, excluding taxes, this being the lowest of and only complete bid of 2 bids received, and that the remaining $356,964 be funded from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund dollars. Mr. Kearns, do you have anything you want to add to this, or I do have a question for you with regard to McFarland, but I'll let you go first.
Certainly, Your Worship. So this is an extensive program. Through the pandemic, we paused our paving programs, as a lot of municipalities did, as we weren't sure how things were going to roll out. This involves our previously communicated program. This time is 3-dimensional milling. So this is a little bit, well, it's a lot different than we've done in the past. You may have heard the term shave and pave in the past, where you simply remove a quantity of asphalt and put the same quantity of asphalt back in. You essentially end up with a smooth surface that's very similar to what you had previously. This process minimizes the amount of asphalt that's removed, replaces the crossfall of the road, which ensures that we have drainage to our curbs and gutters and our stormwater systems so that we don't have rutting, that sort of thing. So there are some significant greenhouse gas emission reductions from not replacing asphalt unnecessarily. So, and it is over budget, which unfortunately, after, the circumstances globally, we've seen inflation and other impacts to prices of oil and that sort of thing. And asphalt is an oil product. So it wasn't unexpected, unfortunately, after the world's impacts, that it was going to be over budget. We had anticipated it perhaps being greater than it ended up being. So while it's not great news, it's not as bad as perhaps it might have been anticipated to be. So
my question with regard to McFarland is I noticed there's a road cut there and there's a little bit of a dip in the one part of the road. Is this mostly being done from the top of the hill or whatever going to the transfer station area?
yes, Your Worship, that's the intention. That part is it's an unconventional setup in that it's kind of an extension of McFarland Street that runs through the middle of our operations yard.
Okay, no, that's good. Councillor McCann.
This indeed is an ambitious project and certainly overdue but as you say, with COVID, that's something that interrupted everything and everyone. So what is the time frame and what can motorists expect when this is all being rendered? And is it this year or next?
So through Your Worship, it is this year. The anticipated start date is right after Labor Day. We didn't want to try and undertake the project during summer. I'm not sure that there's an ideal time to undertake a project on some of these, and the main access to either end of town essentially is a big portion of this. So we discussed that, and certainly on Joseph Street, school will be back in, but the contractor is also responsible for traffic control and maintaining safe traffic and pedestrian traffic during the project as well.
So I guess we would expect a lot of flag people personnel in terms of traffic being interrupted with stop and go.
Through Your Worship, I would say that's a safe assumption. I'm sure that we're going to try and minimize traffic disruption, which may mean some of the grinding activities may occur at hours of less intense traffic use. So later in the day, perhaps to try and avoid those disruptions.
I think Mr. Bonanza has a comment or two there. Well,
I just wanted to add too, so we did put out this tender. So on the main link, so on Bow Street, Joseph and Church, we required that all work is from 7 to 7 at night, just so it's not major disruptions. But the lower traffic road, we did keep on in the daytime.
good.
Sounds good.
That sounds
Thanks.
good. Yeah, excellent. Councillor Backman.
Thank you, your worship. Mr. Kearns, I just have a couple questions regarding this. Do you know approximately how long the RFP was available online?
Through Your Worship, I think I'll defer to Mr. Bonanza. I can't answer that specifically. We did use bids and tenders. So we have a standard advertising time. It is, just to clarify, it is a relatively specialized process. Using the 3D milling, the company we contracted with is Control Systems. They're originally based out of the Czech Republic. They've been working in Canada extensively, and they're actually working in the Sudbury area right now, I believe. And Rotomill is essentially one of the only companies that has partnered with them. So there's GPS controls on the grinding machine to ensure that it's very accurate in terms of a digital elevation model to ensure that we're only removing what's absolutely necessary. So, but I'll defer the other part to Mr. Bonanza.
Just to add on the timeline of the RFP is, we did have it for the minimum of 15 days. We did actually extend it by 2 weeks, so we did have to add an addendum to that.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. It's noted in your report that no referrals were looked at with regards to Fowler because they've done some work with us in the past and both with the engineering company. And I was just wondering when the last time they worked for the town of Parry Sound in this capacity.
I believe it would be on Emily Street was the last rebuild, if I'm correct.
Yeah, through your worship. Yes, I believe Fowler completed the Emily Street project in town.
Thank you. And my final question, will there be any bike lane improvements with regards to these resurfacing or anything like that?
Through your worship, not at this time. It's strictly resurfacing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Borneman?
Just to be clear, Bose Church and Joseph, are we redoing the entire connecting link here before somebody's expectations maybe gets too heightened?
Through your worship, they are portions of each of those roads. So it's essentially the area from the tracks on Church Street up past the high school, generalizing there in that section of Joseph Street and Church, and Bow Street from Osler Park Drive into just near the water tower. So no, I wish we could get that much paving done for this amount of money. However, it's just portions of those and then the other street resurfacings.
Just to add to that a little bit, just due to the portions is because of the cost on Church, Joseph and Bose. We have to go, instead of just a shave and a 50 mil pave, they're going to be going down 90 mils. So they'll be doing 2 full layers just to the fact of our heavy truck and the deterioration of the asphalt getting into the base.
Yeah, Mr. Kearns.
So through your worship, just to add to that too, we don't end up with a lot of distance in road completed. However, those are 4 and 5 lanes in width. So we have to remember that there is an extensive amount of asphalt, although it doesn't get us all the way through town.
Councillor McCann?
Just curious, what happens to the old asphalt that gets picked up? Does it go through some sort of recycling process?
Through your worship. So our intention is in this project in particular is to reuse as much as possible in the bases of the other roads that we're going to be resurfacing. So the idea is to the shavings that come off the bigger roadways are going to be incorporated into pulverization of the other roads prior to repaving. So we'll have a better base to place that asphalt on top of, which should give us a longer lasting product at the end of it.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting. That's good.
So I guess the last one would be, so when people ask about Hillcrest and Addy Street, that one area and that sort of thing, are we going to be doing any sort of cut and sort of patching or something to alleviate some of those areas that are in crumbling in those spots?
Through your worship,
Yeah.
we will be looking at those areas closer. We need to understand the extent and the condition of the underground infrastructure.
Yep.
So those were all taken into consideration in what you're looking at in this paving project. We understood what the in-ground infrastructure is prior to resurfacing, make an assessment of how long that's going to last prior to redoing the surface. So that's a big component of any decision-making process in terms of rebuilding some roads.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Anything further? Nope. All in favor? And that's carried, unopposed. Moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, the council supports the immediate closure of vehicle public access to the driveway access to the Tony Agnello water treatment plant. Kearns, do you have anything you want to add to this one?
Thank you, your worship. Not in particular, other than we have looked obviously for a period of time at complaints and issues with traffic volume and speeding and the use of Wabick Street. Staff are of the belief that it was never designed for through traffic. The configuration of it is not conducive to past volumes, never mind future volumes. So that's where the recommendation comes from.
I've only had good comments from people that it's much quieter. Councillor Horn.
Thank you for the report. Full disclosure, as a resident of Salt Dock Road and with this closure, we all know that Salt Dock Road is one of the busiest roads in the town of Parry Sound. Without proper sidewalks daily, there are near misses. Certainly the implementation of the no parking signs that went up last week has alleviated some of the near misses because vehicles aren't parking now on the side of the road. My concern is with the lighthouse development and 44 new condos, no sidewalks. What is the planning in terms of future traffic management for Salt Dock Road?
Through your worship. Well, there's a hope, and there will be, as part of the site plan agreement with the lighthouse, they'll be extending the fitness trail. So it will look quite different than it does right now and be much more accessible from that perspective. We are working on the rail safety improvement program and the work through realigning that intersection at Wood Street, which feeds into that entire area. So as we work through that project, our intention, and I know council mentioned it in the past, about that issue of no sidewalks. And we don't want to see the lack of connectivity. So our intention is to continue that process down through that area and ensure that there's connectivity through the sidewalk network. It is a bit challenging, obviously, through some of the corners on Salt Dock Road, and may require us to look at some innovative solutions.
Yeah.
And I also think communication with the OPP, because we do have racing that occurred on Wabick Street, and with the closure of the throughway through the Tony Agnello plant, the racing will probably only get worse on Salt Dock Road as cars do donuts down on now the unsalted area and fly up Salt Dock Road at incredible speeds, sometimes narrowly making that corner. So I think continued discussion with the OPP and monitoring of that area would be an absolute necessity. Thank you.
Through your worship, certainly we have the capability now to gather the data as well, and the OPP have been very responsive when we're able to provide that quantitative data to them as well. So,
Councillor Bachman, then Councillor McCann.
Thank you, your worship. I just wanted to note to Councillor Horn that when this was spoke about at the past meeting, I did allude to maybe with this closure that we may need to look more seriously at the other entrances to the salt docks. And so I think I would concur with you on that. Just as a note, I was at the salt docks on Sunday, and it was quite interesting to see all the skid marks that are 50 feet long. And I was very curious even to ask my children, who frequently are new drivers, now go down there to try and get some insight as to what they see. But of course, there was no intel shared in that. So I think that it is important that we keep communication. But I also want to note that I do know that our bylaw officer has been down there in the late evenings and is trying to communicate to people about parking down there and stuff. So that was really great to see. But yeah, I have heard some people have commented to me in the last month actually about the speeds on Salt Dock Road. So it would be interesting to see if we change our sign to have our speed sign down there and as well to see statistics from our OPP and more presence there. So thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McCann, then Councillor Keith.
Thanks. What, two questions actually. So there'll be signage then at the end of Wabick Street then that will say that this is basically no exit or dead end, so to speak, then to become, to those who are not familiar with the fact that area will be blocked off through traffic.
Yeah, through your worship. So there will be at the end indicating a dead end essentially, as well as signage in the area approaching at
Okay.
appropriate areas
Sure.
to direct them to through streets.
Okay, so over on the Salt Dock side, then surely there must be some traffic calming strategic plans we could put in place. I know we've talked about speed bumps before, and some people have vehicles that just glide over them with no problem at all. But in terms of controlling traffic down that way, I guess I'm thinking maybe of laneways that would sort of channel people in and out of the side, of the Salt Dock area, with speed bumps in appropriate areas and with appropriate guards along the way. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you can sort of channel or funnel the traffic through narrow but safe passageways, that you get away from the racing part of it. So whether you use something like trees for barriers, anything decorative or creative that would calm the traffic in that area and reduce the temptation to speed.
Through your worship, I think it may be a very difficult area to channelize given its current condition. When the salt piles there, obviously the configuration is completely different. They don't have the ability to move the way they do right now. So I think we need to remember too that it becomes more of an industrial area down there once the salt starts to arrive on the dock. And it may be very difficult. So that's not saying, so I'd suggest that we can certainly do the traffic monitoring, understand first, and we always say this, so I'm not questioning anybody's observations, but we like to have that empirical data, which is something that our law enforcement partners like to see. So if we can show them, here's the data, here's the issues, here, especially if there's some targeted times, that certainly makes enforcement a lot simpler. We can start there to see what the data tells us. And then rather than trying to design traffic calming efforts without knowing what the extent of the problem is or what the exact problem is or when it is, it's very difficult. So having that data in place prior to formulating a strategy is important.
So do you think that at some point in the future, if we reinvent the use of the salt docks and there's no need for the salt trucks to be coming and going from there in the future, is there possibility to develop boulevards and such that would make it a little bit more calm for people to come and go, a little bit more direct and channeled then?
Through your worship, certainly the removal of heavy industrial traffic offers a whole new opportunity if that were the case. So the short answer would be yes, there would be all sorts of different opportunities presented at that point.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we also have parking down there as well for the boat traffic in the summertime. So there's some days there's a lot. Yeah. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In respect to this resolution about the closure for public access to the water plant, what I'm wondering about is near the end, the last paragraph there, arrangements can be made with the owners of 86 Wabick Street, the water treatment pump house, to facilitate continued access to the property. So in respect to that, what I'm wondering does that mean there might be consideration for some sort of signage for that property owner that says private drive to the one side, because they would be starting down the same area before the road is closed. Is that something that's going to be considered?
Through your worship, so it's anticipated that they would be accessing from Salt Dock Road. Coming in that driveway, that would be the main access to the water plant. And there used to be a driveway to the old water plant from the top. It's been closed for quite some time. There are bollards installed across that, so there has been no vehicular traffic going in and out that way for quite some time. So they've always accessed, say always, in the recent past, they've accessed from the bottom. And it's anticipated that that's where they'll continue to access.
Good. Anything else? All in favor? And that's carried, none opposed. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2022-7269 being a bylaw to delegate certain powers to the chief administrative officer during the council restricted acts period, also known as lame duck period, in 2022, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion? Councillor McCann?
So what would be the extent of the authority then at this point?
Oh, I think he's total control, dictator.
Can we think about that?
Through the mayor to Councillor McCann. Yeah, I don't want that kind of authority. But on page 2 of the report, it lists 4 main things that could be impacted. And I'll just briefly go through them. The appointment or removal from office of any officer of the municipality. And of course, the clerk's an officer, the CBO, and there's other officers in the organization. The hiring or dismissal of any employee of the municipality. I think that's the employees that council gets involved with, which are the directors and the CAO. We're not talking staff below the director level. Disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has a value exceeding $50,000. And this is probably the more likely event, if anything was to happen, making any expenditures or incurring any other liability which exceeds 50,000. And that's so monies that aren't budgeted, but if something significant was to happen and we needed to spend more than 50,000, if we got a lame duck council, that would be a problem. This delegates it to myself. There's also built into the bylaw, there's an obligation. I report back to the new council once it's constituted as to the actions that were taken, and they get ratified at that point.
So just as a follow-up, and then for the benefit of the public, maybe we could explain one more time then what exactly is a lame duck council, and what's the time frame, and when is it established, and obviously until the new council is sworn in.
Through the mayor, of course, this year is a municipal election year. The nomination date is August 19th, so we won't know until then if there is a lame duck council. But at that point, if there's a lame duck council, this bylaw would kick in. If there's not a lame duck council, it wouldn't matter. Stated in the report that if less than 3/4 of the existing council members aren't returning, then it's a lame duck council. And we have 7 councils, so it's 5 or less. If there's 5 or less councils, so if 2 members of council aren't returning, then it'd be a lame duck council.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Yeah, one question. Anything that has been budgeted though, that's been budgeted in the current year, and it's been put out to tender already or whatever, that sort of thing. I believe the council still has the ability to pass anything that's been already pre-budgeted. Is that correct?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else? All in favor then? And that's carried. The budgets or bylaws and sign them later. Okay. We also have someone online tonight too, in case we need to answer questions on this next, with regard to this next bylaw. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that bylaw number 2022-7270, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a master lease agreement and fleet servicing with Enterprise Fleet Management, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, seconded by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Who wants to start with this on staff? Mr. Kearns?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll just try and give a brief overview, and then Nathan from Enterprise Fleet Services is with us in case there's any questions that council may have for him directly. So this program is a program offered through LAS, so Local Authority Services through the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Enterprise Fleet Services or Fleet Management was awarded the tender back in July of 2018 for LAS and AMO. So this is a vetted process, competitive process that AMO administers as part of their purchasing program, and Enterprise was the successful proponent to offer these services to municipalities and other government partners in the program. Since that time, they partnered with currently 25 Ontario municipalities, and they are in talks with another 25 Ontario municipalities to provide these fleet services. So some of them include Sudbury, Temiskaming Shores, Clearview Township, Meaford is another one. So there's a number of them at varying locations across the province, north and central. Enterprise has a 99% retention rate with their government partners currently. So that's renewing their program with. What we are looking at in this program, and it was included in some of that fleet synopsis, the projected savings of just under $150,000 over 10 years. So just under $15,000 per year, which is a conservative estimate on the savings in procuring our fleet and managing our fleet through this type of program, or through this particular program. Through the program, we also have the ability to help track and reduce carbon emissions using technology. So that's one of the aspects that fits into the ice cap commitment that council has made in our climate initiatives, is tracking and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions through the use of integrated technology with the fleet management system. We have the ability to do that almost in real time for those particular fleet units. And part of the program, they schedule quarterly meetings with us to actively manage the fleet, which is something that most municipalities, I can't say that most municipalities have active fleet management programs. We certainly manage fleet to the best of our abilities, given our other tasks and jobs within municipal organizations. So that's kind of the highlight. Stephanie Phillips, our Director of Finance, has been involved. We first started talking to Enterprise back in 2020. So we've been looking at the program for a little while. It's been rolling out. It's becoming more popular with municipal partners. So this is an open-ended program that we are not committed to for an extended period of time. There's a master lease agreement, and it's not a traditional lease. There's equity built within the program. So it's not, as you would see, a personal lease program rolling out. So certainly, if there are questions, Nathan's here and he would certainly be in a better position and certainly more knowledgeable than myself to answer those specific questions.
I'll give Nathan, he's sat through this, our meeting so far. Nathan, is there anything you want to add to what Mr. Kearns has relayed to us?
Sorry, if I could, your
Welcome to our
worship,
meeting.
I'll just jump in. Sorry. I had just to mention Nathan is an account executive and he's based out of Sudbury. So he
Okay.
would be our account executive. So I
Okay.
just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Mike. And through your worship, yeah, I'll just add that as Mike mentioned, I am a northerner living in Sudbury, and through my role, I work with both private business and government entities across Ontario, and we've seen a lot of exciting traction with working with different municipalities as far as managing the fleets from procurement all the way through the operating expenses and through resale and end of life. And through our award with LAS and AMO, it's been just a really great fit for a lot of municipalities. So that's what kind of brought us here today.
Yeah, thank you. So any questions from council? Councilor Bachman.
Thank you, your worship. My question actually is two questions. One, actually just procurement. In what capacity does this fleet management deal with capacity? Meaning, do we still go out and put tenders out for vehicles, or does this company manage all of that for us?
So through your worship, essentially they manage it for us. We tell them what we need and they procure the vehicles for us.
So then as a follow-up, how do we determine best pricing?
I'm not sure if, sorry, through your worship, if I could defer that to Nathan. So they have the purchasing power that we don't. We did do an assessment of the last vehicle we purchased ourselves. We just took delivery of it this year. So I think through a comparison, it was a just straight line purchase was about 6.8% higher than we may have seen through this program, for instance. So I don't know if Nathan would like to comment further on pricing and how they obtain their pricing.
Yeah, just to add through and through your worship, Councillor, what we do from a pricing perspective is we bring recommendations to any one of our partners that we're working with, and in particular Parry Sound, knowing the local dealerships that are there, we would work with basically those manufacturers and compare the costs of whatever vehicle or class of vehicle that the town of Parry Sound is looking for. And from there, we would take all the costs into consideration, not just the what's known as the sticker price or the acquisition price, but we would also take into consideration all the operating costs of that vehicle over its given life. And we're able to, and then we divide that by how much the anticipated annual mileage is to provide what we call a cost per kilometer. So it's a very simple metric of looking at what a vehicle costs. And so we do that for any of our recommendations, and ultimately the decision lies with the town of which vehicle to purchase or which vehicles to purchase, depending on what the situation is. But we bring recommendations based on what the lowest cost is to own and operate that vehicle over its given life. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, very much. Thank you. And just my second question, Mr. Cairns, is in regards to the term. It states a pilot project for 12 to 18 months. Can you elaborate on, are we 12, are we 18, or are we in between, please? Thank you.
Certainly through your worship. So there is no term to the project or to the program. So once we're past, and certainly I would ask Nathan to correct me if I'm mistaken on this, once we're past 12 months, we can exit the program. So there is a certain level of confidence given the fact that it's been vetted through LAS and AMO, and that there are a significant number of municipalities operating under this type of program right now. We thought it was fair to treat it as a pilot project for that period of time, and it should give us enough time to evaluate and make a recommendation going forward. Certainly if if we saw something at 12 months, staff would not be recommending to extend it. If we wanted to, we thought there was value in extending it by another 6 months prior to asking, whether we commit entirely to this as our procurement going forward. That was the thought process, and having a bit of a window in there with them to work.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. I think that's a great strategy.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, and I believe it's probably for Nathan. And I received the impression roughly since about 2018, this idea of procurement, in which seems like more value you're getting for your money, but this idea has come into force and variety of municipalities buying into it. And I'm wondering, with the interest in electric vehicles, what the interest is of some of the other municipalities in being involved in such a process.
Yeah, through your worship, that is a great question, Councillor. Something that we are in early stages of now is working with a bunch of our current municipal partners who are looking at transitioning in some small capacity or even in a larger capacity into different green initiatives like electric vehicles. And so we do work with them in terms of an analysis from kind of what that looks like from an infrastructure perspective and from a pure cost perspective, comparing that of an electric vehicle to an ICE or an internal combustion engine vehicle. And so right now, a lot of the analysis that have been done to date, just due to a lot of the challenges in the current manufacturer's environment, just getting a general ICE vehicle or gas vehicle is so challenging. So electric vehicles are a little bit more challenging on top of that. So a lot of what we're seeing today is that we're very early in the stages of electric vehicle transitioning in any sort of material way. But we do see, as some of those things ease and as the technologies do improve over the next couple of years, I'd imagine a lot of what we're going to be doing with our municipal partners is constantly reevaluating that, probably annually, and helping that transition when the time is right.
Thank you.
Sorry, your worship, if I
Yeah.
could just add
Go
to what Nathan was mentioning. So we did have this discussion throughout this process and kind of came to the consensus that we are a little bit early. We are actively working on some of those infrastructure challenges with some of our local partners in terms of ensuring that we have the charging infrastructure in place to be able to support that. And the good news is that we can move through this program and adjust our needs as opportunities present themselves. So once we have that infrastructure in place, we can, and we certainly are looking at, and we did have quite a conversation about EVs and alternative fuel vehicles.
I'd have one question, and it'd be for Nathan, and that is now you mentioned that you take a look at the area where you're in and the local dealerships and who's going to be able to fix those vehicles. Do you work with the local dealerships to see if they can provide a best price for any of the vehicles, or is this bought from Ford, General Motors, whatever, corporately?
Yeah, great question. And through your worship, what we do is a combination of both. Actually, we do work with local dealerships as the receiving dealer, and those are the dealers who we often place the orders through. But we do build the vehicles through the manufacturers, which is one way we're able to really help reduce costs, because we're able to build those vehicles specifically to what the specs are required on that vehicle. And then if it was a Ford, for example, we would go through the local Ford dealership. And again, if it was a GM vehicle, we go to the local GM dealership, and they would still get credit for those vehicles. And obviously there is a lot of servicing component that goes to that. So our entire platform really hinges a lot on local dealerships, local shops, and the local economy.
That's really good to hear. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, anything further with regard to this bylaw? All in favor? That's carried and no one's opposed. Next, moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn, that bylaw number 2022-7272, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with PSD citywide for maintenance manager software in accordance with the MMP number 3 funding agreement to be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed and sealed. Who wants to talk about this? Mr. Kearns? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this, as the report indicates, is the Municipal Modernization Funding Program third round. So we were successful in making our application for funding, and the contribution amount is somewhere just north of $76,000 from the province, with our municipal component somewhere around $25,000. Sorry, I don't have that portion of the numbers right in front of me. So the anticipated cost of the overall program is not to exceed about $102,000 to $103,000. We have been in talks with internally in terms of the need to digitize our condition assessments, our asset management, integrate it with our GIS system, and integrate it with our asset management software. So PSD Citywide is where our data set for asset management is housed within the finance department. And it's been a collaborative application first, and then discussion as to which system would best be the best product for us to advance to. It's been cooperative with finance and public works, and we've certainly discussed it around the SLT table as well. So this is a seamless fit. It allows us to collect field data that will eventually update our asset management database in near real time and be tied into our mapping system. So this goes to making some of those decisions as to which streets fit into our asset management replacement program and where they fit as well. So taking the field data in that instance, it also will allow us to have preventative maintenance programs within our other operating areas as well. So in water and wastewater, for instance, and have that also integrated into our asset management plan. So we did look at the criteria in the funding agreement, and this recommendation does fit within that as well. So.
Very good. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you. I'll have one more question with regards to this cost. Are there renewal costs and upgrades that will be required in consecutive years?
Through Your Worship, short answer is yes, and they will be incorporated into our various operating budgets, just as there are with citywide currently within the finance department for the asset management modules. So this is kind of an add-on to what we already have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried, none opposed. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that bylaw number 2022-7271, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Okay, carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? Good, that's carried. Okay, so prior to adjourning, I would like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, August the 9th. As it's the second Tuesday in the month, but that's because of our scheduling. So Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Town of Parry Sound Council Chambers, 52 Seguin Street, entrance via the Gibson Street, and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes and instructions on accessing live, streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. And your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.